All right, meeting debrief for the July 11th, 2022 regular board meeting. And call to order normal invocation pledge roll call. Lee was out because he was sick. Approval of agenda, past meeting minutes, the treasurer's report placed on file. Christy did mention that she had given to the trustees. It was ended up being the day after I got the packets out, so it's not in the packet itself, but the list of businesses that were delinquent on personal and property taxes. So she mentioned that. We did the paying of the bills, the fire department report, planning commission report. No one commented in the first public comment. Our first item was the resignation of the firefighter. That, of course, passed, and we really appreciate Sam's service while she was here. And she has logistical issues with timing with the job, and so that resignation was accepted with regret because we could use firefighters. And next we have the 2370 Duff Road bid opening. We did not receive any bids. This was at a minimum of $200,000. And, it's interesting. I had interest early on, actually, before it was up for sale. A lot of people out of Chicago and Detroit and some in the area. And then the interest seemed to go away once it was actually up for sale. And we really didn't do much with it other than the normal notices that we do for property. But normally someone has requested those. And so we'll put a for sale sign in front of it for contacting the township and maybe run a few ads in the newspaper and get a little more interest that way and see how that goes. Next, we had the possibility that the township could acquire property that had been taken back for delinquent taxes, and the state has the first right of refusal, and then it ends up coming to us. And we ended up voting as a board not to take any properties, not to bid on any properties. Next, we had the electrical inspector contract, and this was to take the percentage from 70% of permit fees to 80%. And that passed. It was split. So was the next one, which was the mechanical and plumbing inspector contract. Same change. That one passed, also split. The next one was the building inspector contract, and this is because there were two contracts made in 2018 with the building inspector. The one had an expiration date. It expired before I got in office. We renewed that and set it up as evergreen so we won't have expired contracts. The other one didn't have an expiration date and was that the building inspector gets 5% of the trade fees. So that's operating now, but it seems pointless to have two separate contracts, so it was just to put that part into this contract. And that passed. And next we had the Berry Junction Trail Commission alternate, and Christy was approved to be on that, just in case I'm not available for whatever reason maybe, then the township can still have a voting member on there. And I talked to Chrissy and Tracy about these positions before, and they changed because the people in those positions changed. And it's, I offered if they wanted to take on the primary role on those boards, but because they're interesting. They all have their problems, their issues, their complexities with contracts, multiple municipalities, this type of thing. So I'm still the primary on this. The next is the Water System Policy Board alternate, and Tracy was approved for that, and the Wastewater Management Committee alternate, and Tracy was approved for that. Next, we had the removing of the names from the Visa account, and it was pointed out going into this by the fire chief that we don't want to take him off and of the fire account. And I was just thinking about the township account. I wasn't thinking about the fire Visa account. And so we made that we're taking the previous names off of the township account. And then we were putting the clerk on the Visa account as a business officer and the treasurer, because those are the two that can fluctuate amounts and change some things. And then both of the deputies, the deputy clerk and the deputy treasurer, on as authorized speakers, so they can call, they can get information. And Chief also pointed out that we want those on both of the Visa accounts, the township Visa account and the fire Visa account, and so we changed that to all. And so those were the next four items: the clerk on the Visa account, deputy clerk on Visa account, treasurer on Visa account, deputy treasurer on Visa account. Next, we had the North Lake weed assessment, and because the expenses for last year were just over a little over $3,000, and there's a decent amount of money in there. I think $18,000 for North Lake. I'm going off memory. I have notes that it passed, but I don't have the note on here of the exact amount. It's in there somewhere. And so that one passed. West Lake was also set for $0. Similar situation. That one passed. Middle Lake also set up for $0, similar situation. Different amounts a little bit with each of them, of course. And Middle Lake passed. Twin Lake is a little different because there was only $8,000 in the account, so less, and it was a decent amount of expense, around $6,000, and so that one's going to be charged what it had been previously scheduled for, which was $96.39, I believe, per parcel or per property, and so that will be charged like it's been scheduled, and that passed. Next, we moved on to our discussion items, and the first one was the M120 water project. We've talked about this a few times from the pollution that was determined on PFAS there. And so the proposal is to bring it up M120 and then loop it back around to River where the water is. So it comes up from River and loops back around. And so there was some discussion about that in general. Next, we had the Arpa funds discussion, also a pretty general discussion, thing we've also been discussing for a decent while. And we have one resolution in place that expended over $200,000 of that money, $197,000 of it for roads. And it has to be more of an ongoing discussion, obviously. A number of things want to get hit on some of these buildings. Certain things are in rough shape on the parks, certain things they're on rough shape. But I don't want to short roads either. And I mean, if it was just me alone, we'd probably spend at least $600,000 probably just on the roads of the over $800,000, and then the rest of it a little bit on parks and a little bit on buildings. But it's going to come out a little less on roads because of some of the things the board wants done, and which is okay. And so we'll plan on scheduling more of that and putting some of it in place, and probably next month have a resolution there. The cell tower, I think, is probably a moot point, but they had messaged the township, sent a contract about leasing a piece of property right next to the other cell tower site that we have. I made a couple of inquiries with them about that. They never responded to my last email, so I'm guessing they found a different property in the area that they're probably going with. That's my guess, at least. And the board's completely fine with that. It's one of those things, where I don't think the township needs to own a lot of stuff. I've seen people propose that the government basically owns everything, and I disagree. So I'm good with that going somewhere else. I wouldn't mind it going on the township property. I don't want to limit service in the area if no one else is putting it on their property, but. Next, we have the township hall roof, and this initial quote because there's two roofs already on this building on a flat roof, and then replacing it. Ideally, I would have liked the initial review to come in. Hey, we'll just coat the roof, seal it up, and then it'll last for a number of years longer. And they said you might get 1 more 2 years out of it, but you're probably going to end up encountering leaks in the wintertime when the snow builds up and puts pressure in the near future. And you can actually see in my room, past the little Buddha, I got that as a gift once I got here. Well, that's a whole different discussion on idolatry. I completely disagree with idolatry in all the religions, but they all tend towards it. Next, there's this little water stain up there, and so we have a couple of those in the building, I think in different places, which seem like old marks, and there's a lot of water that runs off of that corner, and then in the winter, when it builds up with ice, it backs up, and you can see that it would be easy to get a leak there, as far as I can tell. It was an older one, but there have obviously been problems in the past, and flat roofs are a common thing for that. And so the basic idea is that I'm going to get more quotes. I'm going to get a few more quotes on that and see what those come back as. But it's one of those things you don't want to leave until it's a disaster. You want to take care of it before that because it works out better. You get to avoid the disaster, and it ends up being cheaper. Next, we have the vacation policy. A lot of discussion on this. So this is one of those things that seems like it should be simple, quick fix, but there's a lot of variables that people can end up on different viewpoints on. In a township board, it's one of those things of writing something by committee. Like the odds that it comes out well is low because you essentially at that point have a schizophrenic writer, right? Because a board is essentially a schizophrenic decision maker because you have a township board, you have 7 different personalities. You have 7 different minds making the type of decisions. And so it doesn't work out great going into details on that type of stuff, but it's also kind of hard to write something up without some sort of direction on what people may agree with, and it's hard to get agreement overall. But basically, we came out on this that I need to write something up, including all these variables, and just my take on them to a large extent. I'll probably consult with Christy and Tracy and anyone else that wants to talk about it and let me know what they think, and see what I actually write and put into a proposal and bring it to the board, and then potentially it can be either adjusted then and passed or even pushed off another month. But we need to get it updated. And Renee brought up that like the next board that gets elected in 2024 can change it, and that's true. But it's kind of true with everything, And so it's not a great plan to not make changes just because someone else can change it later. We still want to put good policies in place, and largely, if you don't put good policies in place, you're setting the next person up for failure, or if you're going to be that next person, if you're rerunning, you're setting yourself up for failure, and so we want to get solid policies in place. Then we had our second public comment, and Kim Sear was there, the county commissioner, and he messaged Bob Lukens, the head of the county parks, in the meeting, and got a response on the boat ramp on Twin Lake that they had West Shore do a sounding and had gotten the depths from that, but they were still looking at the feasibility of a ramp. Next, Kevin had come up, and he talked about assessing issues that he has with assessing, and he'd put in a FOIA request. This big thing he kind of talked cryptically and kind of in circles, and so it was confusing for everyone, obviously. But he put in a FOIA request that it was difficult to tell exactly what he wanted on there. Still not exactly sure what he wanted specifically from that FOIA request. And I talked with Tracy about it because I got it. He'd emailed it to me, and we had talked before over the phone and emailed before, and I told him he could email me anytime he wants, right? supervisor@daltontownship.org. So anyone can. And so I had gotten that, and I'd given it over to Tracy, and we'd talked about, all right, what exactly does he want in this, and should we just reach out to him and ask him to clarify? And apparently she'd gotten busy with other things, and so it never sent off the full response, which we want, obviously we want to not do those types of things. It was as she was coming into office too, which is very difficult. And she's done well at it. Coming in these types of positions. I think a lot of people misunderstand them, even the people coming in. And I didn't, and I tried to explain this to other people coming in. It's like running and then jumping on a moving train, which I haven't done. Right, I've done skydiving and alligator wrestling and running with bulls and some different things. That's fun, and I've always thought about running and jumping on a moving train. But taking on the political position is a lot like that. And so there have been a couple of things that have been missed, but largely she's caught a lot of stuff too. So on this, and I had a talk for an hour with Kevin today and emailed him a few times back and forth on getting him the information that he wants. And he had a theory about the previous assessor leaving, which I don't think is true unless he's getting information from somewhere else. So I said in the meeting that is a lie, because as far as the information that I have and I know, it is not true. And I brought up a number of things that he thought were wrong in assessing and with assessing. And actually, for my discussion with him today, I'm looking, it'll probably be for next budget season, to change the BSNA access for property information online through the website. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be a budget discussion later. Next, Karen had brought up that her cousin had a funeral over the weekend, and no hole was dug. So this was obviously, a miscommunication, and something to get transferred over to the burial company. And she had inquired a little bit about that, if we have a sextant, if we have a cemetery coordinator, and those are basically used as synonyms now. But we don't have someone in the township who digs the holes. We contract that with West Michigan Burial Vault for doing that, but we have a cemetery coordinator. Now, we don't have one specifically designated now because Jess had been before she had left, and then Lori had taken it over, and then she left, and then Christy and the admin assistants were filling in a little bit in the middle, and then it naturally goes under the clerk's office normally, and so Tracy's working on getting that underway, but a lot to take on, and I think at this point we're not selling plots, or I said if I had to take it over for a while to sort some of the issues out, because there have been issues with some of the burial stuff since I've taken office. I've noticed, I'm sure before from what I've heard, and so I wouldn't take sales until some of that got sorted out. So this was obviously an issue, and it's very reasonable to be upset about that. People are emotional, obviously, about people that have passed, and therefore about the cemeteries. And well, actually, they have found out that we got the pump working, should be working at Oakland Cemetery, because that had been mentioned in this meeting, mentioned it under the Arpa stuff, that one wasn't working now, which is ironic, following right on the heels of Beagle, but had got a company out there today, and which worked out great, because they had an opening in their schedule, and they were able to get that up and going. Next, and I actually didn't get the name of this person, but she had mentioned, I've talked to her before, but she had mentioned that she couldn't find the packet on the website, and so the website is clunky. If you pull up the Dalton Township.org website, and well, I'm working on getting the ordinances on Municode and getting stuff running with that, but they're merging with Civics Plus, and so they seem to be moving slow and a little clunky, and I should send another reminder email to them. And then once that occurs, then I'm going to be having the website redone, and maybe I'll shoot some videos with a screenshot and show people where some of these things are. But and hopefully I can start making that change fairly soon here in the near future. But if you go on DaltonTownship.org now, on the left-hand side, there's a variety of things that you can click on, and the one is meetings and agendas. And there's kind of an odd little drop-down list, and it's just the way it was set up before, and so that's where we upload the PDFs. And because I'd made such large packets before, and trustees didn't particularly appreciate it, I was having a lot of meetings in the months, and they didn't like that, and I would let the meetings go long, and then I would have very large packets. So I broke the packets into the regular board packet, the things that I want on the agenda as we're going to be discussing, and we're going to be making decisions on. But I like having more information, general information in other things, and like in the reference packet for this meeting, which she was able to find, and it should have been a line right next to it, would be the board pack. And I offered to show her after the meeting, but then she left. But there was a proposed cell tower contract, so I included the entire contract in this packet. And there was the Township Hall roof proposal. I included the entire proposal in here. But those eat up a lot of space. And so that's why I broke out into a separate board packet and a separate reference packet. And then because of that, over my term, the information that I include in the packets will be something like an entire course on economic politics, and a mix of that, and a little bit of sociology and a little bit of history. And so I included a short work in here called I Pencil by Leonard Reed, which is about some basic economic principles, very important to understand. I included one chapter called Our Purification from the book The Question of German Guilt by Karl Jaspers, which is just amazing about the transformation of self and society and what is necessary there. And that's an abridged book from a set of speeches he gave after World War II. Next, I have Who Am I, which is a poem by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the Lutheran theologian, who I really like, and that's an excellent poem on perspective. And he has a number of other good works. And then The Gray Monk by William Blake, which again is a political perspective about reform and change, and if it's useful and if it's possible or if it's futile. And so good information in there. Someone called it my reading list, and essentially this is the reading that I'm recommending. But the packets are available on there. And so usually I moved, when I took office, instead of the packets going out on Friday before the Monday meeting, that's how it was before, I wanted to give more time. That's a short amount of time. I wanted to give more time, but if you roll it a couple of weeks back, it's impossible to get like the treasurer's report stuff in there, and then you're trying to add things at the last minute. That doesn't work very good. So you have to draw a line somewhere. And so I've just said Wednesdays. And so Wednesdays, I get the packets together, I print them off for the trustees, I send the board the email with the board packet and the reference packet. And then Andrea is included on that, the deputy treasurer here, and she's the one that has been putting those on the website. And so she usually gets that up on Thursday. Now, there have been times that we had trouble getting it up on the website, and it ended up on the website on Friday. But you can imagine if I was getting the packets out on Friday, it'd be impossible to get them up that same day if we ran into any trouble. So it definitely works better. Next, Robin talked about that the county should fix the boat launch at Twin Lake. And then the board had no other comments, and we had our motion and approval to adjourn. So that is the packet. A lot of, or that was the meeting. A lot of stuff in there. A decent amount of discussion. It was like an hour and a half. So even though this video, I don't know how long it is, but it's going decently long, it's still significantly shorter. If anyone has any questions, thoughts, ideas, comments, concerns, criticisms, feel free to reach out. The direct line at the office is area code 231-332-6700, or email supervisor@daltontownship.org or jeffrey.martin@daltontownship.org. Until next time.